Hey, welcome back to another episode of the She's Making an Impact podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Ngom. Let's talk about how to plan a profitable 2023. Wow, can you believe time is flying and I can't believe it's 2023 already. And we're on January 2nd. So are you ready to crush it? So this is the kind of episode that you're going to want to maybe listen to me, but then you might want to take like a pen, sheet of paper and actually take some notes. And you might want to listen to it once, but then go back and then pause me. So that way you can really get the most out of this. First thing I want you to do, is we're going to start just by reviewing 2022. So how did 2022 go for you? What worked and what didn't work? And so as I'm looking back at 2022, I made a whole list and I wanted to share with you what worked and what didn't work for us. Happy New Year, just so you can see, because I think there's power in learning from me what worked and what didn't work and our mistakes and lessons learned and all that good stuff. So I'm going to share with you, but then I want you to create your own list of what worked and what didn't work. So what worked? We went to Machu Picchu. That was really fun. We had a girls trip to Machu Picchu. That was one of those bucket list trips, really fun experience. So that worked. We bought a house. We've had it on our vision board to buy an equestrian property. So that happened and we bought that equestrian property. We went back to France and, Ed Sheeran had a concert in Paris. And so what I want you to do is think about the life that you want to live of wouldn't it be really cool if Ed Sheeran has a concert in Paris and we just kind of pick up and go. So I wanted to create, really be intentional about creating more memories with our kids. And so I'm TJ's 9.5. I'm halfway done with him being home and then he's gone. So I'm going to take him to France. We're going to have this really cool experience. So that happened this year. I was invited by one of my very first mentors to go speak at her event in LA. And I was able to go and speak, sell from stage for the first time. TJ got to go with me and go on stage with me. So that worked. Also got to go to Cabo with my hubby where we had our honeymoon and celebrate our 10-year anniversary 2 years later because, COVID, having a baby, all that stuff. What worked? I had rib surgery after, this will be part of what didn't work too. I'm 35 and I have had pain since I was 19. So rib surgery after all of those years. What worked? We hired setters and a closer to help build out our back end. And so that really worked for our business is, getting the right people in the right spots and really focusing on our back end. And so that looks like me actually spending more of my time on the back end of actually taking more enrollment calls. And that worked because we increased our revenue 70% in 2022. We doubled our profit, which is crazy. But by really focusing on that part of our business and getting the right team members there, that really worked. What else worked? Doing a weekly webinar really worked. We didn't do any launches this year, no challenges. We have a challenge coming up this month, but we didn't do any last year. And it really worked to not have any launch highs, launch lows, anything like that. It was just really steady, but steadily increasing. So that really worked. What else worked? Gave up alcohol almost a year ago. That really worked. I just have more energy, more mental clarity. I feel really good. And that was a really good decision of giving up alcohol. What else worked? We bought 5 cars for our car rental business in Senegal. So that has really taken off and we're looking at buying more. So that worked. Another thing that worked, join high-level masterminds. So I joined 2 masterminds. One that was most of last year, part of this year, and one that's going into this year, where your minimum income level has to be $1 million or more. And so the average income level for one of them is $15 million. So what that does is it forces you to up level. So that has worked because it's really pushed me to see different strategies, different tech, just to think bigger. When you're surrounding yourself with people who maybe they just have a job, that's how you're going to be thinking, right? But if you're surrounding yourself with people who are playing at a bigger level, all of a sudden you start thinking, how could I do that too? And you start playing at a bigger level. So that has really worked. What else has worked? Really relying on God to lead me in growing this business and following that. We completely restructured one of our core offers after me spending time in that prayer closet. God gave me just a download of what to do. So really being led, and just like following my gut and my own instinct as well in growing this business, that has really worked. What else worked? We increased our net worth by 50%, which is crazy. And also making big commitments. So that also worked. Of telling, when I joined some of the masterminds, I basically said I was at that income level, or I would be at the end of this year, even though it was going to be a really big stretch for us to do it. But what that did is it forced me to stretch to hit it. And because I wanted to be in integrity with my word, right? And so that really worked, of making the big commitment that really pushed me to follow through. So that's a list of what worked. What worked for you? What worked for you? There's probably more, but those are the things that like came to my head as I was thinking. I was like, wow, it's been a big year. A lot has happened. What didn't work? I was bedridden for most of 2022, like on the couch, or in bed, basically, because of my ribs and the pain that I experienced there, which also caused a lot of anxiety. And thanks God, I feel like I'm on the other side of that. I'm able to get like 10,000 steps or more now per day, which is really exciting. But 2022, I was on the couch growing this business for most of the year. So that didn't work. That was hard. That was really hard. Another part that didn't work is actually having like PTSD from the ribs. I had to get an MRI, actually 2 MRIs, 1 MRI biopsy of the boobies. And that what caused like a traumatic reaction in me. I was like sobbing the entire time. Ooh, I don't want to go there. But that didn't work. Like just realizing how much of an effect my injury has had on me mentally and emotionally. That was hard. So I feel like, thanks God, I am on the like coming out to the other side, and this year gets to be the year of like health and healing and really getting strong. So I'm very excited for that. Whew. What else didn't work? Overpaying in taxes. When like, especially towards the end of the year, as our profit margin has grown so much, we have started paying a ridiculous amount in taxes, to where my husband was like, we got to figure this out. So we actually hired a company that we just started working with right now, that's going to help us lower our tax liability legally. Because when I looked at like last month, I'm like, how did we pay like 15 times what Donald Trump paid in an entire year in 1 month on taxes? That ain't right. So that's one of our focuses of this year, is how to legally reduce our tax liability, and working with a company to do so. Okay, so what worked and what didn't work for you? What worked and what didn't work for you? You gotta just stop and take inventory of those things. You can't just keep going forward. You gotta look and say, what worked, what didn't work? What do you need to change moving forward? Okay. And then what's your vision for the year? What do you want to create? Like, you have a blank slate. You can do anything. Anything is possible. Like, if you would have told me 5-10 years ago that this would have been our year, that we've been able to do this, like, whoa, I would have said that's crazy pants, but it's possible. Okay. I want you to see like it's possible. So what's your vision for the year? What do you want to create? And then like go back and listen to the recording, and I want you to pause and like actually take time. Like one of the things I want you to do is how you're taking white space. Like I actually went through in December, I planned my entire year. Like I know when I'm hosting retreats, I know what retreats I'm going to. I know when I'm taking time off. I very intentionally am taking off the last week of the month of almost every single month to create white space for myself. Because if you're just always go, 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 you never get a break. And what I really, really learned from this year is by pausing, giving yourself like real time to think and reflect, is when you're going to have some really big breakthroughs. So you got to think like, when are you going to have white space? When are you taking time off? And you got to put it in your calendar now, because if you don't, before you know it, like it's going to be completely taken over by all other kinds of stuff. Another question for you to ask yourself: how are you up leveling? How are you up leveling? So I mentioned like for me, what I'm doing to up level, of like joining these different masterminds, how we up leveled and working with Wealth Ability to really like help us with our taxes and our real estate investing and all these different kind of strategies that we can do. What are you doing to up level? Because if you're like, I'm good, you never stay exactly where you are. So if you're thinking, I'm good, you're going to slide on back. So you got to be really intentional about growing. So how are you growing? What does that look like? And how are you intentionally doing it? Okay. When are you working? When are you working? You got to be intentional. That's like one of the best books you can read is Intentional Living by John Maxwell. You have to have so much intentionality in growing your business. So when are you working? What are your work hours? One of the things that I'm doing is being really clear and intentional and like, okay, I'm doing coaching calls on this day. I'm doing like a webinar on this day. I'm working with Ariana at OBM, and I'm like, I only want to take podcast interviews like the first and third Tuesday of the month. Like only 2 days out of the month are podcast interviews, and that's it. Because I looked at my calendar for next week. I'm like, I have like 4 podcast interviews that are kind of like scattered in there, and it's kind of a hot mess. And that like decreases my efficiency of what I get done. So I'm looking at how can I increase my efficiency, right? So what does your schedule look like? Okay, so when are you working? Be really clear on your calendar and when you're working. Creating that white space is so important. So where is your white space? What are the main investments that you're making? So how are you investing in yourself? But then like, how are you using the money from your business to invest in other things? So my husband and I were like, all right, how many cars do we want to buy this year? We're going to be finishing up the chicken coop. We're looking at, do we want to acquire more land? Do we want to acquire real estate property? What is our money multiplying strategy? What does that look like for us this year? It's just really exciting. That gets me so fired up. We have so much fun talking about that stuff. What are your core offers? What are your core offers? You don't need 1 million. This year, we're introducing more offers, not because I think it's going to make us more profitable. If anything, I think it'll hurt, honestly. But it's like, I feel like this is the direction God is moving me in. And like I said, I'm following that lead as opposed to like what experts are telling me I should do. So we are adding in a core offer. Success Without Stress is going to be coming out the end of January. I'm so excited for that. We're hosting a retreat in France. In April, we're coming out with a high-level mastermind, the Impact Partnership, that is what God has really put on my heart is like, I need to grow more leaders in business. How can I help people grow in their leadership? So like, I want to make millionaires. That's really like what I am focused on is how can I create as many millionaires as possible? Because when you put money in the hands of good people, that's when you could really make a big impact and change the world. So what are your core offers? When are you selling? That's one of the things like this year, every day of the week, every day we had an opportunity to sell something, whether it be through a webinar, through a sales page, through a call. We had something to sell every day. So when are you selling? And then last question, how are you connecting with your audience? How are you connecting with your audience? You got to be really intentional about creating that connection. So how are you connecting with your audience? Okay. What's your biggest takeaway? What is your 2023 going to look like from this? What is it going to look like? Let me see in the comments. If you need to go back and listen to it again. But I want you, like, biggest thing, create the vision. Like, get it so crystal clear and focused. Create the vision. Create the vision. How are you up leveling? When are you working? When are you taking time off? Where's your white space? What's your main investments? How are you growing? Your core offers. When are you selling? How are you connecting with your audience? And then journal what worked and what didn't work. Okay. What has been your biggest takeaway? I would love to hear it, but I want you to go and actually take action. So if you need support in like creating a plan and making this happen, just go to helpmecoachnow.com, helpmecoachnow.com, and you can book a free call with our team, and we would be more than happy to support you and making this an epic year, because truly, believe it, anything is possible. When you have the right strategy and you just figure, I'm going to get out of my own way and just go, anything is possible, and the best is yet to come. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. Go take massive action, and we'll talk soon. Bye.